Copy. Paste. It's the link there, Mike. Can you see that? You just got off work, Rooster. Oh, that's good news. Mike's just about on his way. You got that, Mike? There you are. No. Come on. Add to stream. There we go. I got you, mate. How you going?
I'm doing good, Just so everybody in the room knows, I can't see unless I directly go to this bottom button what people are saying in chat. However,
Yep.
Like I was just telling you, Mal, the stuff that is coming out is actually pretty interesting. In the background right here on the TV,
Yep.
they're talking about the NSA spying on Sean Tucker, which has been verified. And they're talking about the number of audits that were zero and perfectly placed. We have over a 500,000 or something like that false counts on the election.
So, when you say, do you mean Carl Tucker or Sean Tucker?
I mean Carl Tucker, yeah, the news
Carl
host.
Tucker. Yeah, I know. The Fox News guy. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
who you're talking about.
But my point
Yeah,
is,
that rang a bell.
now I want to throw this out there because there's a lot of speculation right now on can Trump be reinstated?
On what? Sorry, mate. But reinstated.
They want to know if a lot of people want to know if Trump legally can be reinstated if all this happens, right?
Yep.
Not likely. We're halfway into the first term of Biden, right?
Yep.
So I think the most likely scenario is going to be whoever, if it does come out that this fraud, and it is looking like fraud, I think most people can see that it's a lot of fraud. If they could prove it, most likely the best chances we have is the people that did it will get arrested, Trump will run again, and most likely get reelected. You know what I mean? But as far as him being reinstated because of the results of the audit in Arizona stuff, that will not happen for two reasons. One, like I said, we're halfway into the first term. That's a lot of business deals underneath the current administration, whether true or false, documented.
Yep.
They're not going to want to fuck that up. And two,
Yep.
if they came out tomorrow and said Trump is reinstated the United States president, what is going to happen in the streets?
Oh, God, imagine. Yeah. Be a nightmare.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page as logical sense goes. Should it happen? Yes. Legally, it should happen. Will it happen? Probably not, because they're going to weigh down the civil action. They're going to weigh down the pros and cons of people's reaction to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guarantee you,
yeah,
they're going to lean towards the left because that's the way they've been leaning towards so far. We have the LGBT stuff going on, which is absolutely going berserk. Like I told you before, I don't know how you feel, but you know how I feel as a parent.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. I'm getting hate mail. I've gotten messages, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, one, I'm not against the LGBT community. You know what I mean? My adopted dad was gay. I have many friends of mine that are. My own wife was bisexual at one point. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's not that I'm against their community. I never have been. In fact, I've stuck up for them until they're taking fetishes that we all had. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a priest. I don't care if you're a nun. I don't care if you're a rock star. I don't care if you're a slut. I don't care if you're a schoolgirl. They're taking stuff that everybody has Googled online for fetishes and things they wanted to get, excited about behind closed doors. That's been going on for centuries. If you're part of the internet community, a part of chat rooms in the early days of AOL, then you know dang well what I'm talking about. There was a whole list of, guess what? The same fetishes, if you recall, they're the same type of title of chat rooms is what you're seeing now. The only difference is they're taking doctors and putting a abbreviation to it and creating a disability out of something that before would have just been a fetish. The resulting of this idiocracy is in London. the London Library hosted a reading event for 4-year-olds, right? This is about a week after the Lee Spa incident. They hired an outside talent agency. A guy showed up in a rainbow costume, okay?
Yep.
Completely rainbow costume. And he had a dildo hanging on the front of his costume and a fake booty cheeks and was swinging it and booty popping against the glass at little 4-year-olds and above.
4-year-olds.
4-year-olds and
I
above.
mean, it's just amazing, isn't it?
The
I
library,
mean,
when
really.
parents, no, exactly. When parents got upset at it, Mel, the library's official response is, we apologize for the outside entertainment, but if the birds got it, you might as well flaunt it.
I mean, I don't know how when did we cross the line that exposing 4-year-olds to that sort of thing was okay, and why is everyone okay with that? If you've got it, flaunt it. I mean, 4-year-olds,
Right.
4-year-olds.
There's a school of thought of exposure. Like if you study mental health, right?
Yeah,
You study war history, and you study
78 here.
oh, what's up, 78? But if you study war history and all that, we all know about long-term effects of slight exposure. Slight exposure means subtle ways of exposing people to things that would make them uncomfortable. When you're doing it in a subtle way, in a repeat mode, even a subtle
Yeah,
repeat mode, over a period of course of time, people become numb to it. And once they become numb to it, they will grow to accepting. That's why they're doing it towards kids, because they want the kids to be more accepting of it than what we
mm,
are. If they could get our kids to be on board of it, then they could get our kids to turn against us. What happened in World War II when Hitler took ideas and did the exact same thing? He turned the parents, or turned the kids against the parents with their ideals, and
yeah.
had the kids reporting family members to the state and awarding them good citizens. Well, the current administration of the world powers, I say the world powers because I no longer believe it's one by one. I think there's a bunch of billionaires that's in on this. But the powers that
Yeah.
may be, they're creating these award programs for being good citizens. Report your neighbor for not getting COVID shots. Report your neighbor for extremism. Report your neighbor for this. Take a pledge not to have children. These are all award set up programs that are very common in socialist platforms. Do you get what I'm saying? What we're
I
seeing is
do.
subtle manipulation upon the masses to get us accepted to it. Not us. They
Yep,
want our kids. You know what I mean?
yep, yep. And they're getting them. They really are.
They are. They are. Right now, I don't know about in Australia, and I don't know about in the UK, but I know right now in America, we have one of the highest suicide rates below 13-year-olds, and all reporting for sex change reasons they regret. You know what I mean?
Isn't that just unbelievable?
From
It's
what I
funny, Mike.
no, go ahead.
Sorry. It's funny you say that. There was. Gee, I might be going back as far as 10 years ago, but there was a. I think he was 11 or 12, and the mother took him to England to start the transitioning process. And if he was 11, he wasn't 15 by the time he decided it was a phase, and he changed his mind. But he'd been, hey, g'day, how you doing? He'd been taking the medication and all that since then, and was just. But again, that's why we don't allow 11-year-olds to make choices like that, isn't it? You
When
would think
you're 11 years
if you
old,
can't get a tattoo at that age, you can't get a sex change sort of thing.
Mal, the research shows. I've done the research on it off and on, just because of disagreements I've gotten into with even people we know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To read into it a little bit. There's research out there that shows that these kids are reporting it's as easy as walking into Planned Parenthood without their parents and asking for the treatment, and they make them sign some paperwork and give them the treatment that day. You know what I mean?
That's just so amazing.
I'm going to do it one step further. Portland last year was whenever the COVID injections and all the sex changes and all that started becoming big. I know for sure in Portland, and I'm pretty sure by the whole state because it has to do with the school. But the
Yep.
Portland schools were granted authority to give kids vaccinations and shots without parental consent.
I don't even understand how that's possible. When I went to school, if they wanted to take you roller skating, you needed parent consent. You know, I mean,
It's
how things changed.
and this is all things that it looks really bad, right? And it
Yep.
sounds horrifying, and it makes us all want to bang our heads into the table, flip off the news, and not talk to anybody about it, right? They pretend like
Yep.
it's not on. But see, if we do that, we're doing exactly what they want us to do. You get what I'm saying? There's a
I
reason
do.
much of it being pumped off across the globe. I can't think of another time in history, even the September 11th attacks, that anything has been pumped across the globe this hard. You're not talking about just COVID. You're talking about whole structures of societies that have been traditions across the globe just being slashed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of them, even scarier, being reborn. Like, if you look at it, you want me to tell you the truth? The truth of the matter is, in Germany right now, Merkel's out of her effing mind because the biggest growing political movement in Germany as of 4 years ago was actually mirroring the original SS squad. One of the fastest growing political movements in Italy carries signs of Mussolini. That was 4 years ago. 4 years ago in Africa was whenever they said, we're doing our part for Me Too. World generals were, and we're taking whole white families and executing, making the men watch them execute their kids, youngest to oldest, and then their wives before killing them, and then saying we're doing our part to take back our country to get rid of them too. Tulsa, Oklahoma, last month, the new Black Panther Party said on camera, "We're here. We're not going to stop. We're going to go door to door and kill everything white that we don't like in sight." And then turned off the camera, showing their guns.
Unbelievable.
You know what I mean? So,
Frightening times.
no, that's just what they want you to think. Because if you really look at the numbers, the overall masses of numbers, you're not okay with the shit. I'm not okay with the shit. My wife, she's not okay with the shit. We have neighbors down the street. I talk to people every day that aren't okay with this shit. So why aren't they being heard? Because they don't want
Yeah,
us
of
heard.
course.
If we
Yeah.
get hurt, they're gonna go, oh wait, some guy over here will go, oh, maybe it's not as bad as they're looking at. You know what I mean?
So where do you think it all leads, mate? Does it lead to like an uprising of people that just say, "What? Like, what do you do at this point?" It's gone so far beyond what I ever thought it could. I mean, you're talking about schools, and when I went to school, if they wanted to take you to the zoo or swimming, your parents had to consent, and so it was just how it was. And
Right.
now here we are in a world where that doesn't apply anymore. I'd tell people homeschool your kids.
We're
Don't
thinking,
send them to school.
me and my wife were actually thinking about it because we figure we got till about the 15 age range. You know what I mean? Because we're monitoring
Yeah.
whatever he's learning right now. It was like I had a conversation with the person yesterday, and I said I used to support OU, and you said why don't you anymore? Which is Oklahoma University for those that don't know. And I said because they were exposed for supporting CRT right after our governor signed a bill banning it in the state. 2 days later, they got caught up for it.
Look at what 78 says there.
First and second, and from America. There's no team spirit anymore. It's all about everybody dividing up into subgroups and hating on
Yeah,
us.
78 Sound. That's been found out just today on the news. And not even today on the news. Jen Psaki yesterday. And we already knew this was coming. See, I'm not afraid of it. I'm about to create. Well, never mind. I'm about to do something. But Jen Psaki said yesterday on the news that they want to join with Facebook and all these other things to quote unquote suppress false information. The only false information is information that goes against their narrative of what they're saying. So
Exactly.
the two go together. And if you're like myself and you've been censored for more than 2 years, you can see what's happening. I've seen numbers change from algorithm reach.
Yep.
Uh, I've seen stuff flagged for ridiculous reasons that I've had happen to myself. So it's only going to get worse before it gets better. But to answer your question, Mel, there's two schools of thoughts I have on it. And one is spiritual, and one is what I call world, right? My world response is to look at you and go, well, things look bad and it's only going to get worse. You know what I mean? Before it gets better. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Every event that's ever been crucial in world history, something bad had to happen and it got way worse before it got better. That's a fact. You
Yep.
get what I'm saying? I believe we're seeing history repeat itself, and I believe it's being repeated in a modern way. Therefore, I do not think that there's anything we can do about it to the point to overstress about it. You know what I mean? All you can do is protect yourself, protect your home, protect your family, be active in your community, be aware of what's going on, do your part and vote in your communities. Because whether you believe it or not, as you can see from the audit numbers that's coming out, it does help. Like every vote does kind of help. They don't want you to think so, but every vote does help. If you think about this voting stuff, wasn't it, Mal, was it not before Obama? It was back when Bush and Gore days. They were talking about election fraud. So this is nothing new. This happens every so often. The only reason why it's being
Yeah.
blown out of fucking proportion is because the whole globe's involved in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just think this last time it was so blatantly obvious. Still, like I say to you all the time, I'm amazed they got away with it. If they can get away with that, what can't they get away with? And every day when we hear more of this, like what you've just said about going on in England, you've lived in England, so you'd know better than me. But the English were kind of always considered somewhat prudish, if that's a word you use. You know, it would be the last place you'd expect someone to be doing what you're talking about, and it being deemed okay in front of 4-year-olds. I mean, it's just amazing change of attitude.
This is my thing, is the poisoning, like you're saying, is, to me, it's bigger than that. Like, you notice how I don't really, like, as much stuff as I post about the election to get the news out there. You see, I really do push the Save the Children agenda, and
Yeah.
these agendas, because whether the LGBT community wants to get mad at me or not, I actually am not against them until, like I said, I wasn't against them until they came to the point of my 7-year-old walking in and asking me a question about relation to an LGBT issue when he was 7 years old because of something he saw on the Disney Channel. That was when I decided that I got to draw the line. When libraries are sponsoring people's spinning a fake dildo at little kids, when you have a Department of Health, United States Department of Health representative being transsexual and proudly walking around in a little girl fruit dress, when you have them in Los Angeles trying to lower the dating age down to 13, when you have the push, when Pornhub flat out had the girl that was human trafficked at 14 years old that was beat on live stream with over 50,000 people watching it. And she pleaded at one point on her hands and knees saying, "This is not a game. This is not a game." And then the girl came in and just whacked her side of the head where she flew. And all they had to do was pay him out of court and nobody knew a thing. Not once, not twice, but this has been multiple things. When we're getting to the point to where if you go outside and you look at 20 houses and they're saying statistically 6 of those houses are running an adult porn site, you know what I mean? When we're getting to
Yeah.
the point where dildos are being put on costumes, we're getting to the point to where a person claiming to be a woman can walk in front of little girls and grown women spinning their cock in Los Angeles, and a newspapers back them up. No, I got a personal problem with this. I got a personal problem with teachers putting the LGBT flag and the BLM flag in the school. I got a
Yeah.
problem as a parent. And it's not for anything less than it's not okay. It's not socially acceptable. If you want to say that you're okay, look, first off, it's going to make me sound like an asshole, but it needs to be said. Isn't the idea, if you identify as being a female, fine. You identify as being a female, kill off your old fucking self and move the fuck along. Why you got to be outside going, "I used to be a male"? So,
Well, it's a badge of honor, isn't it?
so the fuck what?
Yeah.
Move on with your new self. Why do you got to be outside
Uh,
talking to kids at, why is PBS launching a transsexual hour? Why are they being into
good.
our children's cartoons because they want to manipulate the masses into accepting it, and that's the part I'm not okay with.
Well, Mike, you can only see how much it's working. That situation you talk about with in California, where the woman's complaining, "Hey, there's a man in there," and no one around her goes, "Oh, golly, quick, let's do something." No, someone steps forward and says, excuse me, you don't know whether he identifies as a man," and she starts screaming, rightfully so.
Mm.
I mean, we're in upside down world already. I mean, you would just think. I don't have to think back even 3, 4 years ago. You'd have people running into the room to beat the guy up for doing such a thing, because their thought is, "Oh, we can't have this going on. This might happen in front of my." And now it's just changed totally the other way.
Let's flip it
To
around. Could I say this?
sorry, go,
Let's no, no, not
yeah,
interrupt you, but
you're
on a,
right.
let's flip it around like this. What woman would be okay with another woman spilling dildos around their little girls?
Really? I mean, it's a pretty simple question, isn't it? I would think none. I would have thought the whole world would be against that. Let alone we're talking about 4-year-olds in England. I'm just astounded. I'm amazed.
This is bloody England. You know what I mean? Just like it's America. Like this stuff is happening in England and America for a reason, Mal.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because American England, no matter where you look at it in the globe, is viewed as the symbol of democracy. You know what I mean? That's
Yep.
why it's being shoved down those countries' throats. It's not hard. The sad part is the stuff isn't hard to really figure out. The problem is people want to overcomplicate it to
Yep.
make it appear to be way more than what it is. It's not that hard. It's just a bunch of people with extremist viewpoints that are really loud right now with a bunch of rich people backing them up that probably have fetishes of themselves. How many people through the Save the Children campaign have been exposed as pedophiles that are elite?
Yeah, well, Mike, even saying that, like, look at how disgusted we all were with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, you've got to wonder if it happened today, whether they wouldn't all approve of it. That's how backwards we've gone. Like, if it's okay for a man to walk into a woman's change room in front of children naked, if that's something we now defend, I mean, how long till we do defend Jeffrey Epstein's actions? Why? What's the difference?
This is the thing, Mal. You're right on it. Is we're I find it interesting to where I feel for the first time in world history, somebody from all walks of life, like how a lot of our people are, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
get together and overall may not agree politically, but agree that this stuff is sick and twisted and needs to be stopped. Because my issue isn't against LGBT. My issue is LGBT being okay with coming after the children. My issue is the San
Well,
Francisco men's choir, San Francisco, California men's choir, doing a song that went viral, and a lot of people being okay with it, basically saying we're men, we're gay, and we're coming for your children. How much more clear do people need to be before people wake up and realize how serious of an issue this is? We're talking about the mental health of our children. You notice I keep saying it's not about us. They're not worried
no.
about. They know they cannot change our mind unless we're going through those little whatever fucking training programs they have, but we'd have to be willing to do that. And they know majority of us aren't going to. That's why they're focused on the children. But then again,
Mm.
if you look at historically socialism and communism, they always start with coming after the children because isn't it true to start off a successful change like that? You first have to manipulate 2 generations of children because those 2 generations become loyal to the state, aka that power. This is simplistic, but nobody wants to break it down simplistic. They want to make it overcomplicated. You know,
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. Overcomplicate. See, I would have thought even just 5 minutes ago. It seems like I'd be happy to throw the whole LGBT thing away now. You've had your chance. You got your marriage. That wasn't enough, and now
right?
look how far you've taken it. So where do we go next? I'd be saying we've got to knock this on the head now because you're out of control. Usually it's someone you trust or a family member that gets your kids. I have 3 girls, only the grandparent.
Hey, 78. I don't know exactly where you're from. I can't remember. I know we've known each other for a couple of years now as well, but I can't remember where you're from. But did you see the video in New York? I just posted on Instagram. Now I'm going to post the whole article on my Facebook news blog thing for the show. But a African American dude, kind of younger, and a bald headed white dude, kind of older, in broad daylight, attempted to grab a kid walking with a group of other kids, grab him and attempt to throw him in their car in New York City.
In New York City.
Was all right. You're in Chicago. Okay, I got you. In New York City, though, and I'm like, if they had gun laws like my state does, my state is lovely now. My state, you can conceal carry without a license or permit as long as your gun is registered. You know what I mean? If
Yep.
you had gun
Yep.
laws like my state, I don't think that event would have went down that way because there's 5 people, like 4 or 5 people there from what I saw, and probably more in the background of me in New York City. If they had gun laws like we have, 3 of those people could have done what we have. In America, we have a law that a lot of people forget about. It's called citizen's arrest. And
Yep.
what that is, if I have a gun,
You can arrest someone.
get you down on the ground until the police show up there. I
Yep.
can't shoot you unless you
No.
have, you know what I mean? But
Yep.
that's the goal. And if people thought about how much more simplistic this stuff really is, I think they're making stuff like a theatrics show really big for a reason. And I think it's being done to manipulate it to be more of an extreme thing than what it really is. Is it really that extreme to think about the NFACC, the MLB, or not MLB? That's a different issue. Hold on, we're gonna move on to that one. But the BLM, the and all these other groups, right, are banding together to come against law enforcement, right, with politicians.
Yep.
You understand? And politicians are acting like children for a reason. Like you have the Democratic people from Texas, right? They've recently, the reason why they flew to DC was to stop a bill being passed in Texas. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So they're not doing their jobs, vice versa. And then they're taking pictures on the plane with beer cases and all kinds of other things in the background. This stuff isn't that hard to figure out. It's a bunch of fucking power tripping, rich elite people that are perverted that want to change society into how they think. Lori Lightfoot is part of the LGBT community herself.
Like, that woman looks like she's on fucking crack to me, and she just doesn't look sane. She looks like a fucking crazy person, and then she opens her mouth and confirms it. I mean, she's bananas, and how she runs anything is beyond me. I guess the part that shocks me, Mike, more than anything, and like you say, when you talk to people, it's pretty easy to see. Most people don't think 4-year-olds should be subject to, twerking and dildos and all the rest of it. But to think people can scream so loudly, yes, we're for it, and there be no consequence for that. The consequence is you call them out and you're the Nazi. I mean, I don't know how the world got that opinion so quick. Why we're all on the side of.
Bingo, 78.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, sure. Well, I saw that too, 78. Yeah, the black folks are the ones that saw it. Yeah.
I mean, and the
Yeah, I
thing,
saw that.
it's not all black 78. Like I'm very adamant about this because of my wife's nationality. I'm very adamant about this. Not all black folk are like that. It's the
Of
it's really,
course.
to me it's like almost like the trailer trash criminals and ghetto people basically are all banding against this. It's not the whole community. It's those ones banding together because if you look at the protests, it's white, Asians, Mexicans, blacks all together. But they're all that
Yep.
category. The extreme. Do you and that's not the whole national. Why is people like? See, that's the thing. Me and my wife get frustrated about it. It's not about. that they're trying to make it about that to push the narrative. You know what I mean? In actuality, what really will piss off a lot of these BLM members, and I've done it personally, if you want to piss one off, is explain to them that if Planned Parenthood was brought forward by the Democratic Party, and by the way, placed if that never happened, the African American population would actually be the majority of the United States population 3 times over.
Yeah, I've heard him say that. It's the only group that doesn't rise. It always stays the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, here's where it
10%.
gets really twisted, though. Planned Parenthood was founded by a female that was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, like the female version of them. And she literally said the best way to kill these bleep is by killing their children. You know what I mean? Like Mingle style. So people don't want to understand how simple, I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it, how simplistic this stuff is.
Mm.
Okay, I got you. I got you, bud. And that's what I'm saying is, don't think that this is the whole United States population, the whole British population. This is an extreme, yes, like the 6 day. The Michael Jackson song. It brings what he just said makes me think of that Michael Jackson song that he sung. That there's a remix of that's called "They Don't Give a Fuck About Us," featuring Tupac. Ironically, I like to play a lot, but talking about the global elite not caring about us, and they don't. They treat us like we're cattle, and they play us against each other, because if you can play us against each other, we won't ever join together to realize what they're really up to. Do you get what I'm saying? Which is coming after our children to make them little zombies. Why are they pushing these drugs on the children, making them little mini adults? Have you looked at the cartoons? Like, dude, as a parent with kids between the ages of 3 and 11, average in my household, the cartoons I see, a lot of them I don't let them watch when I realize it, but they're putting these characters being feminist and gay and LGBT and trans and all this other stuff in there for a reason. I don't give a damn about Trump and all that. I do that because I care about my country, and I care about the fraud that was committed. I care about the fact that Biden has proven throughout this little half of a term that he's had to be supportive of communism, socialism, terrorists, and domestic terrorists, as well as lining his own back pockets. He's okay with letting his son get off with pedophilia, and he's even okay with family rape. You know what I mean? So that's the part of it that I care about. Overall, the major thing that I care about is the children and people being aware of the fact that this is global bankers and celebrities that are pushing this agenda. They're sick, they're twisted, and they're manipulating. And people are buying it and they're eating it up. You know what I mean?
And yet, Mike, it seems at the same time, or at least in my mind, I don't have a lot to do with other people, but it seems like celebrities and movie stars, they've never sounded sillier to me than they have in the last few years. Like the same Meryl Streep that was Me Tooing with her fucking coloured dress was the same Meryl Streep standing up and applauding bloody what's Polanski just a couple of
Oh,
years ago. You know, she stood on her chair.
yeah.
Now, don't people see that when it happens? Don't they see the contradiction? Some guy who I don't even know his name, he's just come out talking about critical race theory, and it's like, who are you again? I don't even remember
Right.
what movie you were in. Why does your opinion matter? Like, it's only people's kids he's talking about. What? Does anyone hear him say that and go, "Oh, it's okay. I was worrying about nothing. It's no problem." Like, I
Why
don't
are
know what they think.
why are we seeing all these rock stars we grew up with that was saying, go against the establishment, focus on the rainforest, focus on the animals, focus on the water, go against not capitalism, but go against like the greedy big banks and
Yep.
and all this other stuff, right? What happened to the anti-vaccine parents? What happened to all these different movements? You know what I mean?
I just saw the Foo Fighters had a concert that
We
they'd
went,
only let you attend if you'd
we
had
went
the
from
vaccine.
we went from stop snitching, rise up against the power in the industrial military complex, to be good citizens and report them.
Yeah, really? And what? That's happened in 2 years, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
I mean,
We just crossed this line and
you know,
everything flipped over.
I really think that's why they hate Trump so much, because Trump has that rock star mentality, if you really want to admit it. Like, if you really look at him as a whole, I mean, think about it, dude. Honestly, let's be real. If we could be honest for a minute, nobody hated Trump until he became the president and decided to run. Most of these people that's against only became against him whenever he decided to run for presidency. But what they don't
Well,
understand,
that shows how backwards I am, Mike. I never liked that man. I didn't like him. I didn't like his shows. Then when he was president, you can't argue with his policies. I thought you had to give it to him. Good job. Hey, you're really proving yourself. And the rest of the world at that point decided they don't like him. And like you say, all the people that lined up to have their pictures taken with him, and it just all flipped on it overnight, didn't it?
I mean, and honestly, that's really what it drives me nuts about it. Is I'm like, okay, dude, the same person that's talking smack about him, I'm seeing. I'm like, dude, you were just licking his nutsack like fucking last year. I don't get it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, now that he's the president, you got to power with him. But what they don't understand is the people that had a problem that were pushing that Mal were bankers that had a problem with Trump since he got out of the military academy that his dad forced him to go to, because him and his dad didn't get along. And then when he got out of that military academy, he went to Manhattan, New York, and decided to go against his father in a little family competition. And he said he wanted to bring real estate across Manhattan. That's exactly what he did. The bankers approached him and tried to offer him deals, which he actually refused, having that Trump mentality of "fuck you, I have my own money." So they didn't like him.
Yep.
When he decided to run for politics, you got to, and I'm going to give you a real quick example of it. Let's look at the world meeting, the World Union, World Leaders meeting, CPAC, and all that. Remember how they were trying to get him to approach him for all these different deals? And he's seen pictures of Trump basically with his arms folded, and they made him look like he's being a child because he's being stubborn. And the reality of
Yeah.
it is, he didn't sell our country out.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And for that, he hated. Wow. It's so bizarre.
So to me, it becomes like this. This is no longer. This is a good and evil situation, the lesser of the evils. This current administration, which we've shown over the past 39 minutes and in the previous episodes, has actually done more damage to not just the United States, but to the globe than any other administration ever did. Do you get what I'm
And we're
saying?
not a year into it. Yeah.
They're poison. The same agendas that are poisonous to society that they're pushing in America, are they not influencing the globe with the current decisions being pushed
Of course.
over in your
Yeah,
country?
definitely.
You know,
Australia will follow America into whatever it does. They just will.
I mean, it's a sad state of affairs that we're looking at. So to me, I get it how people don't like Trump. He's loud, he's obnoxious, he's an asshole, he don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? He says whatever the
And
fuck
yet
he wants.
they can't hold it. I'm no genius, and I never liked the man.
You know?
And yet, when he's doing good, I can't pretend it's bad just because
Right.
I don't like him. Like,
Right.
it's not like you want to not like him. It
Right.
seems they do. It's just puzzling to me. They,
I,
you know,
you know, that's just it, Mal. I ride with them in that movement because they're the best for America and the globe overall, because they're standing for principles that everybody's basically stood for everywhere. Like, nobody had to basically tell you it's wrong to twirl your dick or a fake dick around little children. It was just kind of something that you fucking knew. You know what I mean? If you did that shit, if somewhere else other than the New York subway, you might get your ass kicked.
of course. Really, mate.
It was
How
just
did
common
people?
sense.
Of course. And now common sense, that word is now an oxymoron. Basic logic is not common. It's no longer common. Um,
I mean,
I don't mind telling you, mate. It's frightening to me.
it really
Frightening.
is. We're looking at an administration that has printed more money, right? And they're planning on printing. Well, they're trying to print even more. See, here's the funny thing about currency that people don't get. It seems like they don't get anymore. When a nation keeps printing off more paper, yes, it is true. We have a Department of Treasury. And it is true. We can print money. But if you print money and just keep printing it, it depletes the value of the currency over a period of
But
time.
didn't we all learn that from World War II? I mean, I understand if you're 14 years old and you haven't worked this out yet. At
Mm-hmm.
14, I might have said, "Oh, just print money for everyone," you know. But then you learn some things. Oh, hey, look, this doesn't work. Well,
Mm-hmm.
when did we all become 14-year-olds that this has to be explained to adults? Like, we all know about Germany and the wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread. I
Thank
mean,
you.
anyone over 20
Russia,
should.
you know,
Anyone over 20, I mean, I knew that by the time I was 20. I was no great student. If I knew it, why didn't everyone else? And it seems today you've got to explain this to adults.
they just don't.
Why?
I don't understand why people can't understand. They took out curriculum in schools a while back. I remember being in school telling the teachers how the textbook left out this part and this part and this part, right? Um, I noticed it when I was in school, but I was a different type of student. See, I was a student. There's a funny episode of. I'm gonna give you 3 little personal stories, okay? There's a funny episode of Fresh Prince of Bel Air, right?
Yeah.
And in that episode, he said, his buddy said, Will used to be the guy that would hide his textbooks in the hood from everybody in a pizza box. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't want anybody knowing that he was reading and, you know what I mean, and doing all this
Yep.
stuff. That was like how I
Yep.
kind of was, you know, like I would skip class and they would find me in the library, high as hell. You know what I mean? And I was like, I look at it like life like that. And I think it's because I was different, like you pointed out. I didn't learn to read until I was around 7. I was in speech therapy until I was in, into my junior high school years. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and being disabled and them telling me, oh, you'll never do this and you'll never do that, I kind of just had this desire to prove them all wrong.
That's what's changed, Mike. It seems people today are eager to say, "This is my problem. I've got this." You know, being a
Right.
victim is the new rock star. It seems, for lack
it's
of a better term. Well, it
it's
is. It's crazy, but like we see it all the time. I mean, it is. It's like a trophy. Here, I've got this, and
right.
it's
I hate that because yes, I'm disabled, but I fought like tooth and nail to try to prove a lot of the doctors wrong. If I went with what the doctor said to my parents, let me put it like this: you've known me for around 3 years.
yep,
When I was in 4th grade and we were living in England, the Oxford University there,
yep.
um, a panel of their psychologists, whole panel, told my parents, in their medical opinion, I should be locked up and the key thrown away. There's no hope for me to make it in society without lashing out in violence. You know what I mean? And it's possible to do it against my family members. At the time, my brother was just born. So I like to think I proved that little panel of however many psychologists there was wrong daily. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, of course you do. Yep.
You know, that scale that they have, they placed me on there once. I'm like, and like my adopted mom, she told my wife once, she said, I don't even know how we got here, but I'm going to get it back on track in a minute. But she told me,
You're right. You're right.
she told her that the only time that I lashed out of violence was normally protecting other people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
True story. So I proved them wrong, because if you went with their theory, what I'm saying is they were painting me out to be a potential violent serial killer sociopath. They placed me on that list. Whenever I tried to join the military, I lied to Sergeant Wiggins to try to get into the Army, and he found out about my my hospital treatments when I was younger, and he got pissed off at me for quote unquote wasting his time. You know what I mean? Because he said, "Did you think we would have found out?" I said, "Dooley, can you blame me for trying?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
So
even when you say that, Mike, I'm thinking of something I just saw yesterday.